Wait a minute, it's coming to me. Oh yeah, let's go to the red room. Hi friends, thanks so much for tuning in for part 2 of the studio tour. We are now in the red room. Over there is the booth. Back in the day when I first moved into this apartment, the realtor showed it to me. And basically he showed me 2 rooms. He showed me the one we're sitting in, which is the red room, and then he showed me the main room, which you saw in the last installment. I wasn't really a studio guy at the time, but I was excited to make it into a music room. Then as time went on, I started getting into the studio stuff more and more. My whole setup was in here. The Argosy console was right here in front of this radiator. There was a 6-foot rack here that had a giant Tascam tape recorder in it. There's a 6-foot rack over there. There was also a rack here. And then there was a sofa against that wall and about 2 feet where you could walk. So it was like really cramped. I used to keep the main room blocked off at the foyer, like after the foyer. So I could leave this door unlocked to the hallway and people could just go use the bathroom and come back. And the idea was, you know, that this was a real commercial place, like it's official, right? I used to read Mix magazine a lot. And in Mix magazine, you're always seeing these beautiful studios. And one day they did this report of this studio in Tribeca. The thing about this studio is that everybody wore a lab coat. And I thought, you know, that's it. We're doctors. How cool is that, you know? So I wanted to kind of give off that vibe. I didn't want it to seem like it was somebody's home. And as time has gone on, there are all sorts of really cool residential studios, particularly in big producers' homes and big artists' homes. It's gotten to the point to where I want things to be cozy and I want people to be happy and feel calm and feel creative. So that's what made me switch it around. So I moved everything out of here, very nervous about it, because the other room, I didn't know what it was going to sound like. I was used to this. So I went in there with a pair of speakers and I just put them up where I thought the console would be, and I listened to it for a long time, and it was a big thing. So eventually I moved everything out of here and made the main space there. And now this is a performance room. So I can get a string quartet in here. I can have piano and some other instruments. We can record a vocalist in that booth. And the pianist has a good sight line. And we can let the pianist go if the pianist nails their part and we have to work on the vocal for a while. There's lots of flexibility in this. So getting back to the other thing, the booth was there. It was the hallway bathroom in the 1890s, but it had become a room where there was a washing machine and a dryer. I was on the board already in the late 80s, maybe, something like that. And so I went to the board and I said, you know, I would really love to be able to use that room, to have just somebody go over there and record and everything. And they said, well, you know, they said, we have services that we're providing to people. So we can't not provide the washing machine services anymore. So, you know, sorry about that. And, you know, I'm pretty cool about things. I was like, okay, well, you know, not knowing too much. And then one day I was looking at the floor plan and I realized that room is on my floor plan. It doesn't belong to the building. And in the old days, the building wanted to actually just hand these rooms off to people because we were all bringing our spaces up to code ourselves. I realized that their washing machine was in my room. So there was a guy named Lenny, and Lenny, who's since passed away, was a really good guy, was the person who handled all the construction and all that kind of stuff in those days. One day, I just waited for him to leave. I had been asking him for a long time, you know, let's get rid of this thing. Let's, you know, this is my room. You know, they were like, oh yeah, you know. One day he left. He never left, but he left on this one day, and I knew he was going to be gone all day. So I went down, I found the circuit breaker to that room, I turned it off, and just with my own 2 hands, I took all the electricity and moved it into the hallway so that it didn't even touch the room. There was an old breaker panel. It wouldn't have been up to code and everything. Lenny comes home from whatever he was doing, and he came up for some reason, and he looks over there and he's like, oh, well, I guess we're going to have to move that. And that was it. After that, I had people I was recording in that room. So for years and years, it stayed, this was the space, until about 2007. And in 2007, I was married to somebody that I became unmarried to, and so I was just kicking around in here. And I thought, why am I not in that bigger room over there with all this studio stuff? So I decided to make this a performance room. And that's when I moved the piano over here. And it's great. I put down this rug, which has been in my family. My sister gave it to me right around that time. Ripped down all the Sonex. I had Sonex from floor to ceiling on 3 walls here. It felt like you were crazy because the Sonex has 400% more surface area than a flat surface. And it was very thick and it felt like a padded room. About 2011, when my now wife Claudine moved in, I decided to do a whole remodel on this room. And what I did was I got RLX, which is not quite as surface area-y as Sonex. And I put the RLX with some borders around it, made out of quarter round. It's not on the whole wall. And I put the rug in. And I made some diffusers because I wanted a bit more lively sound. 7 diffusers, which are up there, and there's also some absorption on the roof. And then I made these bookshelves out of 6 pieces of pine, 16 closet dowels, and some quarter round, as well as some stain and some polyurethane. I built them during this renovation in 2011. They were inspired by Claudine's family. Claudine's father was a classically trained pianist. He went to Juilliard. Mother was a typesetter. And they had their company in their New York apartment on Amsterdam Avenue at 94th Street. And in addition to the books that he did, some of the ones you may have heard of, like the Carl Schachter Counterpoint book, which is beautiful engraving. They did it all by hand, most of it. We have those books, and then we also have a lot of their old study scores. They're just beautiful. We wanted a great place to put them. And to top it off, they also act like diffusers. If I clap my hands, you can hear it's a pretty dead sound, but it's not weirdly dead. And it gives us the possibility to record the piano, record a string quartet, whatever, put some reverb on it, like a convolution reverb. Most often I use altoverb. It doesn't exhibit a sonic signature that takes away from the ability to be able to do that, but it also is not super dead. The piano is a 1917 Steinway, so it's 105 years old. I bought it in 1988. And when I got it, it had just been rebuilt. It's got a wonderful bass. It's a 6'11" piano, Model B, so it's not a 9-foot, but it's as close as any 6'11" piano will ever get. It's got a beautiful sound, done a lot of work to it, and we just love recording it. This monitor right here is a mirror of what is going on that 1080p TV that I showed you last week. So this is currently also being seen in the main room on that furthest monitor that's on the wall. By the way, if you want to see a video on how I record piano when I want a full bandwidth concert grand kind of a sound, I'll link it in the description below. So let's go around here to the booth. So the first thing you'll notice is that the entrance to this is actually physically disconnected from the Red Room. And that's because, one is I didn't want to take up this space for a door. And the other is because I wanted as much isolation as possible. And every opening that you make makes more sound transmission possible. So here is the booth window. That's really the only connection between the two spaces. And this window is designed in a way that a studio window would be designed, which is they're at an angle to each other. There's two pieces of glass. The piece of glass on the other side is plumb, and this one is an angle. As you can see, it's wider here than it is here. And the other thing about it is that they're two different thicknesses. And the reason for that is because of resonation. So you don't want them to resonate at the same frequency, which is why you get two different thicknesses of glass. The second thing is you don't want them parallel so that a frequency which is this size will resonate in there. So this way that stops that, because the change in distance means that the frequency that resonates in any particular place is going to be different. And because one is angled, it goes this way. So sound should dissipate quickly. So this booth is 8 feet by 5 feet, which is pretty generous for a booth. It's not huge. And there are 8 tie lines between the booth and the red room. And that came from the fact that I thought, 4 headphone lines, 4 microphones, how much more could you even get in here? Now right there is the 1080p monitor that mirrors the main room. Over here is my Marshall double stack. Now you may be saying, why do you need a Marshall double stack? I don't need it. I've had it since I was 16. This has a lot of sentimental value. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I bought this in Virginia Beach, and when I was 16, they didn't really have these kinds of stores in Richmond. So I had to go to Virginia Beach to buy it. And 5 years earlier, I had been there and seen Jimi Hendrix in concert. It was my first concert. And of course, he was in front of a stack of Marshalls and everything. I was so excited about getting a Marshall. And I also have a Fender Bandmaster, which is also a good sounding amp, which I use through the same cabinets when I want to. And just when you don't think it's going to happen, I'm going to take it out and crank it up to 11. Now, the room itself is done in the same RLX and in the same way. I tried not to go too crazy, but because it's a smaller room, I felt like I needed to have a little more here. So it is a little deader. I don't know if you can hear that. And there's a rug on the floor because this is the very cool looking mosaic tile from the building, which I actually shined up. I'm sort of sorry we can't see it, but I felt like I really needed to do that to keep things under control. Up there, I have 3 more diffusers, which brings that insane project to 13. I had pieces of 1 by 1 all stacked on this piano. Fortunately, Claudine did not see that. She's seen the pictures, but if she'd seen it in the moment, she would have killed me. A few other things. I always keep this mic stand here set up with a mic ready to go. Hopefully a good one. This is an 87. This room is acoustically isolated, sort of to the maximum. None of the walls touch on the outside world. This one is up against someone's bathroom. This one is the hallway. This one is the hallway, and this is our room, the red room. So we don't experience any sound in here to speak of. It's very good in the red room, but this is just locked down. So I do voiceovers and stuff like that and not worry about getting any sound from the outside world. The last thing is we have some shelves up here that has stand lights, stuff we need to use. Archive CDs, I have tons and tons and tons of them. Motivational quotes here. When the power of love overcomes the love for power, the world will know peace. That's a Jimi Hendrix quote. So as we're saying goodbye today, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you hanging with me and checking all this out. I'm very serious about this YouTube journey. And so, you know, your subscription is very, very much appreciated. Next week, I'll be back and I'll have something new and exciting. For now, thanks so much.